Okay, I guess we'll get started. Good evening, everyone. This is the meeting of the Rowley Board of Selectmen for January 14th, 2019. This meeting is being video recorded and televised live on Rowley Community Media. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Dan, would you care to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to take something out of order a little bit to get us started, which is general business number one, which is a sad item for the town. We learned today that our friend and colleague, Bob Merry, has resigned from the Board of Selectmen. I'll read his resignation letter. To the Rowley Board of Selectmen, this is with great sadness that I am informing you of my resignation as of January 10, 2019. Due to my health, I am no longer able to fulfill my duties as selectman. I thank the town for letting me serve on the board and for all the support the town has given to me through the years. Sincerely, G. Robert Merry. And I understand he's also resigned from the Board of Light Commissioners, so this is a big loss for the town. Any comments from the board members? We will be...
Yeah, I'd just like to say something. Bob is one of the finest individuals I've ever worked with. He was my vice chair when I was chairman of the board, and then he became chairman, and he led us during the 375th. And we have lost so much knowledge when we lost Bob to the board here. I can remember just a small story. We were looking at a delineation line in the town, and Bob went back to a meeting of the town of 1740, found that delineation line, dissected that, and presented it. That's the type of knowledge.
Yeah, the historical knowledge that he
Historical
had was immense, and it's sadly being lost.
Good man.
We are planning to see if we can get Bob in at our next meeting and to read a proclamation for him, thanking him for his service. Okay. Thank you. All right, I'll move on to our 7 o'clock appointment, which is with Monique Jeffrey to discuss the Briar Barn Inn liquor license. We have a letter from Monique. We'll read it. Thank you for issuing the Briar Barn Inn a hotel license in order to serve as guests and patrons of the inn and restaurant. As of January 2nd, we were issued a temporary certificate of occupancy in order to be able to open the inn only. We understand we cannot receive our full license until all 3 spaces, inn, restaurant, and spa, are complete, and we have received a finalized CO, but at this time we would like to request a temporary alcohol license from the town for the inn only. This would allow us to provide mini bar items to patrons staying at the inn in their guest room. So, good evening, Monique. So it's a pretty simple matter because you can't open the restaurant and the inn together at this time, but you're allowed to open the inn. You'd like to have the liquor license limited to the inn.
Yes.
Seems like a simple thing to me. Any motions?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
So a motion to issue the limited liquor license has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank
luck.
you.
Good luck.
We're going to have a period of public comment from 7:10 to 7:15. And we have a 7:15 appointment. Till we get to that, I will take up resume general business number 2, which is a letter from Police Patrolman Scott Hurdle announcing his retirement. He says, please accept this letter as my formal notification of the town of Rowley as to my intent to retire from the Rowley Police Department on March 15, 2019. Any motions?
I give you a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
Accept it.
Motion to accept his retirement with appreciation
Yes.
has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. General business number 3 is a request from Police Police Chief Scott Dumas to lift the hiring freeze for the position of full-time patrolman. He writes that due to the scheduled retirement of Officer Scott Hurdle, I'm requesting the Board of Selectmen to lift the hiring freeze so I may conduct a process to establish a list of qualified candidates. Upon the retirement of Officer Hurdle, I will make a recommendation from that list to the Board for appointment to transition as seamlessly as possible.
Make the motion.
Second?
Motion to lift the hiring freeze has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. New business number 1 is to discuss the decommissioning bond for the Rowley Solar Project at 623 Weathersfield Street. The special permit issued by the Planning Board for this project requires the solar company to post a decommissioning bond with the town. If the solar company ceased operations and abandoned the site, the bond posted by the town could be used by the Board of Selectmen to remove the facility and restore the site to a pre-existing conditions. The bond funds will need to be appropriated at Town Hall, and the project will need to be bid out in accordance with the requirements in public bidding laws and prevailing wage rates. We would need to file a request for determination of applicability with the Conservation Commission to dismantle the facility, and they might require a permit for us to do that, for the town to do that. Attached, we've received some information from town planner. The town planner got from the Newbury Planning Department on the amount posted for various decommissioned bonds in other municipalities. One important note is that the decommission plan is planning for 30 years, so there should be an inflationary factor applied to the bond amount. Furthermore, the decommission plan assumes scrap value for the various components of the facility, and perhaps the bond should not factor in scrap value at this point, since it's extremely speculative that it has any scrap value. If there are not enough funds in the bond to cover the cost of decommissioning the solar project in Rowley, should they cease operations, the bond would have to cover the cost to dismantle the site, labor and equipment, to transport all the components to various disposal sites, have to cover the disposal costs and any permitting costs. So the question is, what recourse does the town have other than the town seeking town funds to recover the shortfall? Such funds would have to need to be appropriated at town meeting, or whether the bond, but incidentally, the planning board did require a bond, and the developer agreed to post the bond in the amount of $105,000. So I guess the main question is whether the board thinks that that amount is sufficient. In the spreadsheet that we received from the Newbury Planning Board, I think you can see that it gives a breakdown by various towns in Massachusetts in terms of the megawatt size and the amount of the bond, and I think they come out with an average, if I'm reading this correctly, Debbie, of $61,000 per megawatt. This is a 2 megawatt facility, so I think you'd say that the planning board determination to post $105,000 is not that far off, at least according to this information. Any discussion?
Well, just, I guess looking at all these various communities that have postings of bonds, I'm just not sure that, my own feeling is that the site is on private property, being built by a private entity, and in the end, if it fails or if it gets decommissioned, we become totally responsible for decommissioning it. I'm not sure what the reasoning is in that. Maybe there's something in the state law which just doesn't seem correct. If we were doing that on town property, I could understand it, but I just don't understand how we become responsible. I think we ought to ask the planning board if there's a way that the property owner, who's going to make the income from the property, and or the company who's been making the profit from it all these years, becomes totally responsible for decommissioning, whatever the size of the bond is. If the bond isn't big enough, then they should be the ones to make a difference, not the taxpayers in the town of Raleigh. But whether that's true or not, I'm just not sure. I'm not that familiar with this whole process. I went to the meeting the other night, planning board meeting, and I come out of there kind of confused, to be perfectly honest with you. But it just seems like a situation that I assume that by the time it gets decommissioned, most of us, maybe all of us, won't be here. But I kind of hate to pass that bill on to the next group. 105,000. I mean, for instance, we're putting a new boiler in this building. It's going to cost us $50,000 to put a new boiler in this building, and we're going to decommission an entire solar facility. I don't know how many panels they're going to have up there, but I assume it's a couple of hundred panels, and they're going to decommission that for $25,000, take it down, haul it away, put the land back. I mean, to me, it just doesn't. Figures don't make any sense, and I understand that the developer wants to, have a reasonable bond cost. I don't know what bonds go for, but certainly seems to me that at a minimum we should have a bond that's a lot bigger than 105,000. But that's my own opinion, and like I say, I'm not sure how the law reads on this, because the other communities seem to. Apparently, they're not too concerned about it. I mean, there's some larger bonds, but there's a 4.2 investor has a bond of for $240,000. Plus, there's another one for $361, but those are much larger facilities. So, but I don't know how you possibly come up with a bond figure that's going to cap it in 25 years. And I relate it to the big dig in Boston when they were planning the big dig. And how do you possibly plan for the cost of going through the city of Boston, keeping the city of Boston open, and come up with a bid figure that's anywhere near what it's going to be? And we obviously saw the cost overruns in there were in the $1 billion range. So it's just we've got to do what we got to do, I guess, and it's up to the planning board to make that decision. But it's this office that will be responsible for the decommissioning, and it's a burden that I don't think we should have to pay for. I think it should come entirely out of the project or the project cost or the bond for the homeowner and or the company that's building it. So.
Well, I would say that the solar company is still primarily responsible for getting rid of all the equipment in the event that they cease to operate. That's not our primary responsibility, and the purpose of the bond is just to take care of the situation where if the solar company just decides to shirk its obligation and leave town, and it's nowhere to be found. I don't even know if we have, even if we have a bond, if we're legally obligated to remove the things. It just would provide a source of funds for the town to take action. And if that source was insufficient, I don't think the town would have any remaining liability. In other words, I think we would just remove as many panels in the most sensitive locations that we could, and then that would be the landowner's responsibility at that point. But I agree. The bond should be accurate to cover the costs of removing the panels, and it should. We have to recognize that this might not happen for another 10, 20, or 30 years. So it's very difficult to say what that amount is. I mean, I really don't know the answer to that. But.
And if the company changes hands, also the bond follow.
Yeah.
That's something we'll make sure. Again, I don't know what the state law is in this particular
It seems,
case.
Mr. Chairman, that
I don't think there's any law that I know of. I mean, this is something.
Probably not.
Yeah.
This is something that we put this provision for a bond in our zoning bylaw, and the planning board required a bond to protect the town, to provide a source of funds, so we wouldn't be left with a horrible looking mess up there, 10, 20 years from now.
Well, I know some of these early systems, the companies come in with great proposals, and then they went out of business before they even started. I know that's been an issue too with homeowners that putting up. There's been some companies that have gone out, so I'm assuming that if this fails, it's probably going to be due to the company failing, but I don't know. It's just
The other thing is,
Technology changing.
we're rolling the dice, and I think maybe you're right. If I mean, it's not our land,
Right.
that when it comes time to decommission it, and whoever owns the land at that time will be, I assume it'll be their responsibility, or it end up in court with a battle over who has to
And,
decommission it.
You know,
But
the price is, the bond is one thing now, and you look down the road 30 years from now, or 15 years from now, it's probably not gonna cover it.
No, not if there's.
No.
been
We
no
all-
cost
and we
of
all know
inflation
that-
adjustment.
when we do projects, we have to pay prevailing wage rates and all kinds of insurance and liability requirements, which greatly increases the cost of, probably doubles the cost of what a private person can do a project for. And that makes it even worse. And like I say, it's something that the administrative people in this office will have to be responsible for at the time. And I assume we'll all be gone, but I would, we may not have much choice in the matter.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
I have a public comment, I'm gonna try to sneak it in, but I'd be glad to wait till after you guys are done this discussion.
Yeah, let me just finish this. Is it about this matter? or-
No, sir.
Okay. All right, so we should move on without taking.
Yeah,
any-
The planning board that's making this final,
The planning board has required $105,000 for the bond, but they indicated that they would relook at that, I believe, when the project is completed, and then down the road. I mean, so they did say they were going to relook at it at some point, but right now it's $105,000. Okay, so we'll just move on. Okay, public comment has started.
Mr. Chairman, I want to bring to your attention what's going on at the State
State your name
House.
for the record, please.
Mike Sabatini
Mike.
on Main Street. I want to bring to your attention what's going on at the State House right now with the marijuana lobbyists. They're pushing right now to make two changes, and bringing this to your attention so you can perhaps get ahead of it as you are bringing dispensaries to our town. Right now, the marijuana lobbyists are trying to make it as simple as ordering marijuana from your house and having it delivered like pizza. I really don't think that's a great idea. And the second one they're doing, smoking is prohibited in public housing. And they're trying to get that law changed to allow smoking marijuana inside town properties and public housing, as down by Railroad Ave, to allow marijuana smoking inside the buildings. I mean, as you are creating bylaws and have created bylaws, the marijuana lobbyists are fast and furious at the State House right now, and those are very big changes that are going on right now, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll now take up our 7:15 appointment.
One,
Oh.
do you want us?
If I could sneak in just a quick.
Certainly.
Brian DePersia, 500 Withersfield Street. Just kind of a general, kind of a question for the board, in a sense. So, kind of in the name of maybe inclusion and diversity, has the board ever considered changing the name from the town of the Selectmen to, say, the Rowley Select Board? Anything like that?
I don't think we've ever formally discussed it.
What process would be required in order to kind of elevate that or bring that up front to kind of a level where it could be discussed or otherwise?
I will put it on the agenda for our next meeting
Okay.
and see what the board members feel about that. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Chairman.
Maybe ask town council to give us a,
yeah.
I know there's been some opinions. My wife's the
Yeah.
moderator, and there's been a lot of talk on her moderator's website about, and most places it really hasn't gone anywhere. There's been a lot of controversy about it.
Well, I think the town of Wakefield actually changed the name to Select
Yes.
Board, or...
That's what it does as
so-
well.
So Tom Mullins, who's the town council for Wakefield, would
Okay.
certainly know about that.
He can give us an
so, yeah,
opinion,
it'd
and
be
we can
worthwhile
discuss
to-
it then.
The statutes, the Mass General laws, though, have not changed.
Yeah.
So it's still the position as selectmen because of those law books say right there.
Oh, really?
Selectmen, Board of Selectmen, it's a statutory name.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
municipalities are creatures of the state, so.
That's true.
We could probably do that informally,
Right.
but the state law hasn't changed.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Tom would say about that. So if you could ask him, I appreciate it.
Certainly.
Okay, we have a 7:15 appointment with Rowley Municipal Lighting Plant Manager Dan Folding to discuss the Rowley Municipal Lighting Plant's plans to connect a solar project at 623 Weathersfield Street in the town's right-of-way to the Rowley Light Department's electrical system. The lighting department had previously installed 6 light poles at the solar project on Weathersfield Street. The approved site plan approved only 1 pole at this site, which resulted after the last planning board meeting in the light department removing the 5 poles. Dan's here tonight to discuss what the light department is proposing to do in the town's right-of-way in this area. So, Dan, thanks for coming tonight, and thanks for promptly removing those poles.
You're welcome.
So I think basically we just want to find out what the lighting plant is planning in terms of making that connection. And I believe at the planning board meeting you indicated that the connection would be done entirely within the town's right-of-way. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. So can you describe for us what that would look like in terms of what specifically would be installed within the town's right-of-way? Besides the telephone pole, we understand that's going to be there.
Yeah, well, it will all be installed on existing telephone poles. So on Weathersfield Street, just before you get to the project, there's an empty stretch of roadway. There's no houses on either side. The equipment that we need to install would be roughly 3 pieces of equipment. It'd be what's called an air brake, a metering cluster, and a recloser, and those will be installed on 3 separate poles that are already existing.
Okay. So there's no ground-mounted equipment at all?
None at all, no.
Because I think you were there was a talk at the planning board meeting about in a shed or ground-mounted boxes, metal boxes that would be needed.
That's correct, and that was if we decided to stay within the project limits. It would have to be underground, and those pieces of equipment would have to be inside green metal boxes. But since we're going to locate the equipment on the existing poles on Weathersfield Street, there's no need to put the boxes
All right.
inside
So
the project.
everything will be on poles.
Everything will be on poles.
And how big is the equipment that will be put on the poles?
The metering cluster is probably the biggest piece of equipment. It's probably 4.5 feet long by 2 feet high,
Okay.
right around there.
Mhm.
There's a recloser that's probably 2 feet long by 2.5 feet high.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. I mean, my concern was we'd wake up some morning and see some, unpleasant-looking buildings in our right-of-way. So.
No, it's all going to be done on existing poles.
Okay. Any other questions?
My question would be, Dan, is when this project was being proposed or discussed at the planning board, it doesn't sound like anybody really paid much attention to how the interface between the town and the solar facility was going to take place. In the previously in town, we had some issues where there was 3 poles constructed across from the VFW, or put up a few years ago to handle transformers, I guess. And it was a large to-do when they were moved in such a way that they were less obtrusive.
Okay.
Same thing happened down on Central Street by by Plantation, the elderly housing. The same thing was proposed there, and I'm just wondering is there a way that these poles could be put on the other side of the hill and then just a line come down to the pole? I mean, do we have to put the boxes on the public way, or can that be done on the property over the hill and then just run a line, either whether it's on top or underground, to the town's connection, so that from the town's point of view, there's nothing changes from what's there now, other than you'll see a pole come down from a pole or 2 poles or whatever come down from the hill, and all that equipment could be on the property owner's side of that hill, that you go up the hill and then kind of goes over the top. That's just my concern, that's all.
Well, the way the project is designed, it's the developer and myself have a meeting to talk about the interconnection, and that was done probably 1.5 years ago. And I dictate to the developer how the interconnection takes place. I'm not sure what happened as far as why the poles weren't shown on the original plan that was submitted to the planning board. That is between the developer and the planning board. But That was missed. And in the interconnection study that was done with the light department and the developer, it was always 6 poles are going to be installed. Equipment was going to be mounted on those poles, but since that was not shown on the plan that was agreed upon by the planning board, you can't locate any poles within the project. I mean, it would be going against what the planning board ruled as the accepted plan. So it's basically everything's going to have to be located on Weathersfield Street to stay within the existing approved plan.
Okay.
Bernie?
Yeah, would it be possible to get a schematic to show what these would actually look like? I mean, a 4-foot by 2-foot square cube, that's not small. And if you, previously you wanted 6 poles to mount this equipment, and now you've got 3 poles, there are obvious questions about, what that's gonna look like. So it seems to me as though the board should request a schematic so we know what it looks like. Because the complaint at the moment is an aesthetic complaint. The poles are going up, it's detracting. Now all we're doing is moving the equipment from in front of one set of houses to another stretch of that road. And obviously there's been issues before about the impact, the visual impact of the arrangement. I mean, I'm not against not having these connections. It just seems to me as though this looks more like a Band-Aid than a kind of a fully designed, thought-through alternative.
What are the dimensions again of the boxes?
Well, it's not a box. Basically, I described the overall dimensions of the metering cluster. It's a piece of equipment that's mounted in a rack. So there's open space, there's pieces of equipment, so it's not like a solid box. It's hard to describe exactly what it looks like, but it's got
like,
3...
More like breakers? And that's the...
It's smaller pieces of equipment mounted within a rack. So you have a metal rack with smaller pieces of equipment mounted in that rack. And the overall dimensions is probably 4 feet wide by 2 feet high.
Which is not much bigger than 2 transformers.
Correct. It's if you know what a transformer bank looks like, it's going to be similar to that.
So like similar size to some of the utility boxes that are placed by communications companies.
Probably smaller than that.
Probably smaller than that.
And you said it's existing poles already.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
I don't have any problem with
Okay, thanks for coming in.
it. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Like that.
Okay, I'll take up old business number 1, which is to discuss concerns over excessive truck traffic on Dodge Road and Weathersfield Street. This is a follow-up to a discussion the board had on this topic during the December 10 meeting. Since that time, Selectman Bob Snow has contacted the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission regarding the process needed for the town to implement truck traffic restrictions on town roads. Dodge Road residents Scott Stone and Sherry Pfeffer-Tammond have written to the Board of Selectmen expressing their concerns over excessive truck traffic on Dodge Road. Bob, are you going to lead the discussion on this?
After you contact me, Mr. Chairman, I contact the Merrimack Valley, being the representative from Merrimack Valley Planning Commission to the town, and I talked to Tony Cormack, who takes care of all traffic problems at the commission, and he forwarded me this managing truck traffic in local streets. Now, one of the things about when it comes to truck traffic, the municipality, okay, it's not controlled by municipality. It is controlled by Mass Highway, okay? So, if you wish to have alternate routes and everything, you have to have a traffic study. You need to, and as you can read in this guide, Managing Truck Traffic on Local Streets, It begins on page, what is it, 2, managing truck traffic on local streets, and then going on to establishing truck exclusion zones. And as you can read through it, there's traffic studies, and then moving on into preparatory study for truck exclusion, but then also getting into looking into truck exclusion bylaws, okay? One of the things that was recommended, sometimes you can go to the company that is operating the vehicles, and then ask them if they would choose another route, an alternate route out to the main road. And you can go that road, and that would kind of, mitigate the problem right off the bat. Otherwise, going through the process of looking for a bylaw, and also then going through the Mass Highway. So with that, I think that's where we stand.
Okay.
Okay.
It seems like there, in reading through that pamphlet, I did take quite a look at it, and that you do have to provide an alternate route that the truckers can use, and if so that you can't prohibit the traffic without providing an alternate
So
route.
I think if you're having a project and coming before the planning board, probably a good idea. We've done that before. We've talked to the persons doing the construction work and asked for them to, find an alternate route, or to, put some speed limits in to, voluntarily on their vehicle. So I think that's probably the best way to handle this right now, to mitigate the problem.
Right. We did that for the construction at the Raleigh Country Club.
Yeah, the Raleigh Country Club, exactly. And I think we had an alternate route going out Daniels Road, was it? Instead of going out Dodge, if I remember correctly. Do you remember that, Dave?
Yeah, I think we just put speed signs down, that's all. We limited the speed to 15
limit
miles an
was
hour.
limited.
Keep in mind that if we want to do an exclusion study, we need to do Dodge and Daniels Road.
Right,
Because
right.
otherwise, I'm assuming that most of this truck traffic right now comes as a result of the project, the solar project. In other words, there's a lot of gravel, I'm sure, being hauled in and out, all
Right.
the solar panels, all that they took down, lots of trees, and those all had to be hauled out. And I assume once this project is finished, that the truck traffic will diminish quite a bit. I mean, I live over on Newbury Road, and oftentimes I go down Weathersfield Street and Dodge Road, Daniels Road, as a way of avoiding the intersection at Route 1 and 133 myself, and it's a nice drive. I mean, it's a nice ride. And so I think once this project is done, I think the mistake that was made was when nobody realized at the time that solar project was okay that truck traffic was going to be an issue. And I would recommend that if and when the project starts at the new project
Yes.
down by the town's Y camp, that we ask the planning board to restrict trucks to Route 1 and coming down Weathersfield from that direction. Because my guess is that a lot of these trucks are coming in, they're using GPS, coming off of 95, and GPS is going to take them down Dodge Road, Daniels Road, to get to the solar project. They're not going to take them all the way around, which is what they should be. So, a traffic study is a big cost. I mean, you look at Georgetown, they did some for
Yes.
their industrial parks, and I mean, there's not that many trucks that they found when the complaints came in. I think once the project's done, that I know like I say, I live on Newbury Road, and there's 2 developments down from my street, and for the last year we've had nothing but 10-wheel trucks, large trucks bringing lumber, bringing everything under the sun for a year now, up and down the road that runs right in front of my house, and it's just some of it is just a result of construction, and there's no other way to go, and there's no way you can really really stop them.
Well, I think maybe if you approach the construction company, okay, and then ask for voluntary speed limits and, care in going through neighborhoods.
Well, my guess is that this solar project has got to be pretty well. I think when we were at the hearing the other night, they told us by the end of the month or middle of the month that they're everything's gonna be done at the site basically, other than cleanup and stuff like that. So I would think that the truck traffic is gonna be greatly reduced. I'm not sure how many trucks are going down through there. I mean, it's a long ride to avoid the corner of Route 1, just for the sake of avoiding the corner. I mean, if they're going over to Georgetown or something, maybe some trucks use that. You see an occasional truck. There's no way you can get around that, but it just seems like we need to be a little careful about instituting a traffic study. And MVPC will probably do it, but it will cost us.
Yeah.
And if you know, say a month from now or 2 months from now, the truck traffic is back to what it used to be, then, you know.
I think probably the best way is to go to the contractor and just, you know, maybe to talk to the contractor have the planning board do it. Or
Right,
the
right.
town planner.
Well, that definitely should be done, but I think it needs to be kept in mind that even if we were to get a truck exclusion zone, it doesn't apply to construction in the neighborhood.
Right.
And deliveries, and, you know, there's all sorts of trucks delivering all sorts of things these days. So what does it apply to? It really applies to through traffic. And I don't know that we have a lot of through traffic. It's really hard to say. When you look at the criteria for the truck exclusion zones that the state has, I think we meet all the criteria with the exception of possibly they have one criterion for that 5% of the traffic has to be heavy trucks, and I don't know that we meet that. My guess is that we don't. But in any case, you'd have to do a 2-day traffic study to make that determination. And that would, if the town were to purchase that on its own, I think that would be a considerable expense. And, you know, so I think you wonder, well, what good is it really if it doesn't apply to the things that are really bothering people, which is the construction traffic. I think that's what it is.
I think the real bottleneck is Dodge Road from Haverhill Street to where it intersects with Daniels Road. I mean, that road is narrow, and sometimes it's hard to get, especially when the snowbank's there, it's hard to get two cars going by each other without one pulling over and kind of making room. So when a truck's coming down, it does make it a little difficult. I don't think there's anything they can do with the road other than rebuild the entire road, and you know, but that just goes back to the days when we had cow paths and made them into roads. I mean, it's just the people built their houses along the side. So, you know, I don't know. Hopefully, once this project is done, probably pretty much now, I would think that
Probably, yeah.
it's pretty near done as far as the heavy
Yeah,
trucks,
I can
real heavy
understand if
trucks.
they were,
I mean,
No.
if the complaints were speeding and things like that, then we could,
Yeah.
you know.
the police are aware of it. And,
If you live on those roads, you know when something's going on, like there's construction in the air, because all of a sudden, that's all you see is trucks, and they're big, heavy trucks. But again, this truck exclusion zone would not affect that at all, because people still have a right to develop their properties, and they have a right to bring trucks in to do it. I mean, so, I don't know, it doesn't seem like even if we got one approved, that there would be a
long legal
great deal of
legal
benefit to
process,
it, yeah.
and
And it would
you know.
cost the town money to do it, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Anybody,
but thanks for looking at
guys,
it.
Ross, anybody in the audience got
Yeah,
a
any
comment or a
comments?
question? No.
I'm sorry, could you just, I was busy typing as I'm, with my notes as I'm saying it. What would be required from the Merrimack Valley Planning Board
To do it,
to do the exclusion? You
would be a traffic study.
Would be a traffic study,
And
okay.
there's actually, look at Georgetown submitted a quite lengthy report prepared by
Yes.
the MVPC, and then included in that you got to demonstrate that you meet all the criteria that the state has, and included in that is the criterion for this 5% provision, that more than 5% of your traffic on that road has to be from heavy trucks. And we're not talking about like pickup trucks or things like that, we're talking about heavy trucks.
And
So-
then you would have to purchase a variance from the state?
Well, we would need someone to do the traffic study and put together
Okay.
this report.
Okay, so it would be
to
the
do
expense
it.
of the traffic study.
Be a 24-hour traffic count on, I imagine it would be on Dodge and Daniels Road. So if the town had to hire someone to do that, it would be very expensive.
Very
These things
expensive.
are not
We've done
cheap.
that several times
Yeah.
with, and Cliff and I, on the planning board, and it is expensive. We've done it out on Route
In
1.
other words, if MVPC, if we do have more than 5%, then we can follow through on the legal process with the
Yeah.
state and so on and so forth
Right.
of doing it. But I too am very
I doubt if we
reluctant to
have
think that we got anywhere near 5%. I mean, there might be on some days because of this construction project.
Right.
But once the project's done,
Yeah.
you know, the only thing you got down there is the golf club. They may have some delivery trucks, but those are gonna be able to go down there anyway.
Right.
You know, they're gonna be allowed down because they're delivering groceries or, you know, foodstuffs or whatever.
Right.
Several years back, I can remember, we had some incidents where they felt there was some speeding down on Dodge and.
That's always a problem. They go by my house.
Well,
I think
I-
all of us
you know,
probably have
we
cars
requested to
flying,
have,
trucks flying
yeah.
by at high speed. That's
We
just
requested the police chief at the time to place a, car down there, do some patrols and set up a radar.
Yep.
And that kind of mitigated the problem too.
Is it possible for you to make a recommendation to the planning board when projects of this scale come up to require some sort of traffic accommodation for those projects?
Usually
going
that's
forward?
looked at, most of the time by the planning, depending on where the project's gonna be placed. Usually, especially if it goes out on Route 1, there's always a traffic study going in there, and depending on whereabouts we did one down by Forest Ridge, we did one down 133 in Route 1. There was one done up on by Weathersfield and
Yeah.
Route 1, another one there. So I'm familiar with several being done when projects came into
Right.
town.
Okay.
I think this board could make a recommendation to the planning
Might
board.
be good to send them a letter
Yeah,
that
could do
when they
that.
have projects to
Well-
take a look at the truck.
Well, I was
traffic
just
routes
gonna,
on these lines.
I was just gonna add that the planning board is nowhere near getting into those
No, I
types of
understand
issues at
that.
this point. They're still addressing very preliminary issues, so at some point in the near future, we could do something like that.
Well,
Maybe when that project comes
why
up
don't
for
we
approval, we could.
send a copy of this over to
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
planning board
Sure.
and tell them we discussed it tonight, and let's make I'll make a motion that we send this over with them to look at every project from now on and take a look at the truck study.
Okay.
Okay? I'll
I'll
make that
second that.
motion.
I'll second.
Motion's made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes
Okay.
have it.
Thank you.
Okay, old business number 2 is to discuss speeding and crosswalk safety on Main Street. We received correspondence from a resident concerned about speeding and crosswalk safety on Main Street. The resident is Linda DeSells. On October 11, 2018, we sent a letter to Stephanie Pollock of Mass DOT requesting Mass DOT to repaint the crosswalks and to place lime green signs on the crosswalks on Route 1A due to safety concerns. We have not heard back from Mass DOT on this request. In addition, in response to the recent complaint, we've received an email from Police Chief Scott Dumas reporting that the police department has been monitoring the crosswalk on Main Street at the post office and the stop sign at Central and Main Street. The monitoring is done by a marker vehicle, which may be why the traffic slows down. The police department plans to redouble their efforts. The records showed they have logged in for this location 53 times over the past 3 months for a total of 28 hours and 40 minutes. So I think the police chief is attempting to deal with the solution on an enforcement basis. I wonder if we could send a follow-up letter to Mass DOT about the painting of the crosswalk?
Well, like the chief said, they're not gonna do anything during the winter anyway, so. Most of the crosswalks, they aren't that bad. When I made the original recommendation, there was a couple of crosswalks further up that were bad. And I was also looking for the lime green signs, because you go through all these cities and towns now, they all have the lime green signs that indicate a crosswalk. And there are some scattered on 1A in Raleigh, but not all the crosswalks.
Not all the crosswalks, no.
Right.
You know, maybe, getting too involved.
I remember seeing them out several times, especially around the school.
Yeah.
And usually, I go up frequently to the post office and parking across the street And sometimes you don't know whether, you see a car approaching, you don't know whether, when you walk out in the crosswalk, that they're going to stop or even slow down. And some come through there like,
I usually pick my pace up when I'm crossing there.
Well, pedestrian, it seems like there's an awful lot of pedestrian accidents lately, and sometimes I think the pedestrians are, even though you're in a crosswalk, don't just walk out in the
No.
street assuming the traffic is gonna stop, because a lot of times it doesn't. It's difficult.
I will say I was somewhat of the cause of an accident in October, probably about the time that this letter was sent, where my daughter and I stepped into the crosswalk and a car stopped suddenly because we were in the
Yeah.
crosswalk, and then another car came up behind it, and
Well,
yeah, but they
it's
shouldn't be
state law.
following that close.
no, they
Yeah.
shouldn't. No. But the fact of the matter is
Yeah, no, it's,
But it's
could be a
state law,
problem.
pedestrian has the right way. so.
Right.
yes.
well, sometimes you're not sure. You're coming up to a crosswalk and the pedestrian's kind of like, are they gonna cross or are they just kind of standing there? And, I mean, down through the center of town, they probably should be going 20 miles or 15, 20 anyway, but.
Well, the police do a very good job
Yeah, they've been out
of
there a lot of
monitoring the
hours. I see
speed
them out there
limit
all the time.
all the time, so.
One thing I've seen that's interesting in some other towns in their small little downtown areas like Arlington, for example, their crosswalks are raised, so in effect they're a speed bump. So you've got, if there's any opportunity to revisit construction of some of the
That would be a
Sidewalk,
very
crosswalks.
difficult to do, especially because A1 belongs to Mass Highway.
Right.
Okay, and 133 Route 1. So, again, we'd be in that, vortex.
Yeah,
You know.
I doubt if Mass Highway would approve a speed bump
Yeah.
on their roads, but.
You can't get them to paint the crosswalk.
Just
Yes.
paint it, it'd be just, yeah.
If they're gonna paint it, perhaps they can do that 3D effect, that make the crosswalk look like it's blocks
Wow, that's interesting.
5 inches high. And that tends to slow down people when they see something that looks like it's gonna break their axles.
I think the biggest thing that slows traffic down, I notice, that as soon as they see the blue lights, that they seem to slow right down.
Okay, moving on. Old business number 3 is Pine Grove School project update. Joe? anything to report?
The December 21st Christmas concert, I was hearing from several people from the construction crew that they were invited to attend, and they saw the reaction of the kids in the all-purpose room, and they were thrilled with the all-purpose room. And everybody who walks in, they say it's so much bigger and better, and it's the same footprint. We haven't changed a thing. We have put windows in on the wall, and so it does look a lot bigger. They are serving hot meals. They have been serving hot meals since January 2nd, and that's working out very, very well, and everything seems to be flowing along. They are on schedule with Phase 3. The upper south will be completed in early February, and they will be going down to the lower south and then the east wing, and the project will be completed in approximately 8 months.
Yeah, the all-purpose room looks beautiful.
Doesn't
And
it?
I especially like the fact that they lowered the stage, so you no longer have this, 3-foot-high stage, which I thought was always a bad
A threat
idea
to,
for
yes.
town meeting, to be up on the stage, for the selectmen and the town clerk and other people. to be
Exactly,
up on that
yeah, all the
stage.
flooring is in on that. The curtain is up on the stage, and they did a good job on that too. Oh, and all the electronics are in, and the camera has been set up so that we won't have a camera on the floor for town meeting.
Oh, excellent.
It will be broadcast.
Okay, I'll take up the minutes now.
Mr. Chairman, I'll give you a motion to accept the minutes for December 10th, 2018.
Fire station update?
Excuse
What?
Fire
yes.
station.
update?
Fire station.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Bernie.
Fire station update. Work is going along at a great pace. The fire station apparatus bays are being painted. The dispatch center and the existing police station building is nearing completion. The furniture for the dispatch center will be delivered next week.
Just one additional, I've had a couple of people have commented about the fact that the lights are on at the fire station all night long. and the outside lights at the police station, they're open anyway there, but keep in mind that those light bills are paid for by the contractor as part of the contract, and I believe they're all insurance requirements that the site be lighted while they're doing construction on it. So it's
Right.
not something the town is paying for, other than it's part of the contract. We pay for it through the contract, but it's the responsibility of the contractor to, he's not adding, we're not paying any additional charges over and above the money we're already paying,
That old
which is a
saying.
lot, but.
That old saying, Dave, nothing's free.
No, nothing's free, that's for sure. But otherwise, everything's coming along good over there. The police, if you notice, the police department, they're working on the dispatch center, as I believe the furniture is coming in within the next week or two. And once the furniture comes in for the dispatch center, then the police department will be moving totally into the new building.
That's a long
And-
process, doing the PSATs and everything else, and
Yeah.
bring that over.
When the state 911 comes in and moves all that telephone equipment and everything, they do that for nothing, actually. But, yeah, it's coming along real good. The fire department will be ready by more or less the end of January, but they're not planning on moving in until probably March. Or they'll be moving in piecemeal, but they won't make the formal move until sometime in
Yeah,
March.
I was involved in doing the original E911s, and it's a long, long process to get that done.
So it's coming good.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
It's within the budget and basically on time, so we're very happy with that.
And so isn't the school project,
Yep.
so they're all going
No,
well.
we're doing well. We've got some good supervision going on.
Yeah. Okay, Bob, you had a motion, I
I
think?
got a motion for December 10th, 2018, to accept the minutes.
Second?
The motion to accept the December 10, 2018 minutes has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, someone want to make a motion for the December 17
I'll
minutes?
give you that motion, Mr. Chairman, for December 17th, 2018, to accept the Selectmen's meeting minutes.
Second?
Motion to approve the December 17 minutes has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have
I'll
it.
abstain. I was not at the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'll give you a motion to accept January 7th, 2019, with the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Second?
Motion to approve the minutes of December 7 has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Jan-
Aye.
January 7th.
Oh, January 7th. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, I'm going to read the announcements now, and then we're going into executive session after that, and we will not be reconvening into open session. Announcements. The town has the following vacancies: Agricultural Commission Associate, Cultural Council, Fence Viewer, 3 positions, Wood, Lumber, and Bark Inspector, Zoning Board of Appeals Associate, 2 seats, and Deputy Shellfish Constables, 2 positions. For more information on these positions, please contact the Selectmen's Office at 948-2372. The Rowley Food Pantry is in need of donations. Donations can be left at the Rowley Public Library. The food pantry is open on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and on Thursdays from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. Okay, as I said, we will now go into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically Police Chief Scott Dumas, and to conduct contract negotiations with Scott Dumas.
Give me that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I think
Oh.
maybe I need to read the entire motion, the formal motion. I'll call for a motion to go into executive session to discuss the following: to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, Scott Dumas, and to conduct contract negotiations with Scott Dumas, because an open session will have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the Board of Selectmen pursuant to State Open Meeting Law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, and to not return to open session. So I'll call for, I'll ask for a motion, that motion.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Any second?
Second?
So the motion to go into executive session has been made and seconded. I will call for a roll call vote.
I, Robert Snow.
Aye, Cliff Pierce.
Aye, Joseph Perry.
Hi, Dave Peters.
Okay. We're in executive session. Thank you. And we're not reconvening.